What's something intimate you did that made you stop mid-act and think, what the heck are we doing? My housemate was getting kind of flirty. She kissed me and ran away. I chased after her, caught up, tackled her, and we ended up play fighting on the floor. All in good fun. She was looking at me with bedroom eyes. Something new. Teasingly, I put my hand on her leg. That's when I felt a hard lump near her groin. I said, "What the heck is this?" She shrugged and replied, "Oh, I've been meaning to see a doctor about that." I moved my hands under her armpits, around her neck, lumps everywhere. This wasn't good. It was late, but the local medical clinic was still open. Against her complaints, I bundled her into the car and drove straight there. The clinic nurse asked a few questions, then immediately moved her to the front of the line. Less than a minute later, she returned and said, "Don't bother with us, straight to emergency at the big hospital. We sit a ring ahead." We got to the hospital, waited an hour, then went through a whirlwind of imaging and tests. While my housemate was being taken for one of them, a staff member pulled me aside and asked if I could get in touch with her parents. I had their number, but it was 4 in the morning. The doctor said he wanted to make the call, so I handed over the number. That's when I found out it was cancer. Surgery was scheduled within a few hours. Her parents arrived not long after. They thanked me and sent me home. That weekend, they came to collect all of her belongings from the house. A few days later, I was folding laundry and came across a few of her things. I called her parents. They said she had more than enough clothes, so I folded the items and tucked them into the bottom drawer for when she came back. Of course, she never did. 30 years later, they're still there. This happened in my 20s. One of the things that has changed since then is how much better cancer treatments have become. My housemate might well have lived a full life today, but early action still matters. If you're like my housemate and have been putting things off, no one will judge you. Acting today is still better than acting tomorrow. My ex-mother also had symptoms. She refused to take them seriously and even actively hid them from people who cared. Eventually, she was rushed to the emergency room, yellow-skinned and confused. She died in under 48 hours. Later, my ex began exhibiting the same behavior, avoiding doctors, brushing off issues. That really was the beginning of the end for us. I will never forgive her mother for ending her own life unnecessarily, for putting her kids through that trauma, and for validating the idea that denial is a reasonable path. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I met my husband at university. I was already extremely career-oriented and submissive in my private life. He was the exact opposite. One morning, I was preparing for my first job interview and I was so stressed that it caught his attention. He suggested doing some bedroom tango to distract me, as I still had 45 minutes before leaving. But I told him there was no chance, as I was already dressed, my makeup was done, etc. After some wheeling and dealing, I agreed to give him a quick whistle blow. When he was done, he told me to spit it into my travel coffee mug for good luck. I did it. Then I fixed my makeup, made a coffee, went to the interview, nailed it, and got my first internship. This became a tradition. Every morning I go to work, I offer to give him a quick glazing just to dump it in my coffee for good luck, and I drink it in the office. The moment when I said, "What the heck are we doing?" was when my husband told me he was counting the coffees, and I reached 1,000. It was just so shocking, hot, and humiliating to learn that we did this for 1,000 times for good luck. I immediately grabbed my calendars, did the math, and he was right. I am over 40 now, and I have my own company. My colleagues have been watching me drink my first coffee of the day with yogurt instead of milk for more than 20 years. Story 3. So, it was my birthday, and I was feeling good. I was freshly showered, and my then-boyfriend had done something incredibly sweet. He baked me a cake from scratch with bright blue frosting because it's my favorite color, and I'd told him that months prior, so points for memory and effort. Fast forward to later that night, we've eaten cake, and as we're messing around, I noticed there's still a little bit of that blue frosting left in the container sitting on the kitchen counter. Next thing I know, this man grabs the container, looks me dead in the eyes, and sticks his popsicle in it. There was a beat of stunned silence. I blinked. He blinked. Then I guess my brain just went, "Okay, we're doing this." And I leaned in. I tried to be tempting. I really did. But the truth is, it wasn't hot. It wasn't sensual. It was deeply, profoundly not it for either of us. There we were, standing in the kitchen under harsh overhead lighting, him with blue frosting slowly melting down his popsicle, me trying to act like I wasn't tasting an oddly sweet mix of generic store-bought vanilla and regret. Both of us realizing, silently but at the exact same moment, that this was not our thing. We ended up laughing. We agreed, without even needing to say it out loud, that we were absolutely not food fantasy people. After a good cleanup, we carried on with other activities that thankfully did not involve baked goods or condiments. Story 4. An ex-girlfriend and I would run into each other around a popular entertainment area of our town. We'd get intimate sometimes and would use a local motel that had a $16 for an hour room rate. This place was about half a mile from this area, and this particular time I was looking for stuff to grab onto for leverage. I found the leverage I was looking for on the headboard, and within 1 minute I broke the headboard loose from the 3-inch wood screws holding it to the wall. The headboard slammed into her face, and she let out a loud yell in pain while I jumped off her and turned on the lights. This broke her nose, and the room looked like a crime scene of sorts. After helping her get the bleeding to stop, we left. I went home, and she went to the ER. She wound up getting a nose job shortly afterwards and thanked me because she could breathe better than with her pre-broken nose. She had a complex about her nose before this, so she finally got the nose she wanted. Story 5. I was seeing this girl for a few months. Friends with benefits scenario. The more time I spent with her, the more I realized that I was not that attracted to her. She was physically unfit, and she had an ego the size of Everest. She was a princess in her own mind. The bedroom activity was not good either. Anyway, it is about her friend that she introduced me to along the way. Now this girl was beautiful. She was funny and had class. I really liked her, and we started hanging out without Mount Everest. We went on a couple of dates, but the tension never broke. I knew she liked me, but she seemed hesitant to be more than a friend, and I was getting some mixed signals. One night, she calls me and tells me she is at a bar with another friend and tells me to come down. This was unusual, but it could be my chance. I get there and she immediately is very affectionate, kissing me and holding my hand as if we were already lovers. It was apparent she had been drinking for some time, and I would not be able to catch up, so I decided to remain sober. Her friend brings us back to her home and puts the two of us in her brother's bedroom while he is away at college. The romance continued, but something was bothering me. Why did this classy girl have to get this drunk to be with me? And would it be ethical for me to be with her, knowing I was stone sober and she was not? I decided that I really liked her, and I did not want to go down this path because I did not want her to do anything she may regret later. She was the type of girl you take home to meet the parents. I told her how much I liked and respected her, and instead of doing it, we cuddled in bed for an hour or two. I may have fallen in love that night. In the morning I left to go to work, practically giddy for a new relationship. Unfortunately, that was a fantasy, and to my dismay, she immediately ghosted me. I have to be honest, this one hurt. She didn't return my texts or my calls for 2 weeks. Eventually, she sent me a text saying that the reason she was hesitant with me was because I had been inside Everest, and she could never understand the reason why. No explanation could suffice. The relationship was poisoned from the start. She suggested I get myself checked for STDs, and that was the end of it. Story 6. I once did it with a semi-regular customer. I wasn't attracted to her just because she kept flirting with me, and I wanted to see what doing it with someone just for the sake of it was like. Halfway through, I realized I could stop, unplug myself, and go home without any frustration at all because nothing was going on except the mechanics of banging. It was the worst experience of my life. I didn't want her to know it was so bad that I didn't even care to continue, so I got done. She never came to my shop after that again, so it was apparently as distasteful for her as it had been for me. I am kind of grateful she saved us the awkwardness. Story 7. So my mother's boyfriend was driving me home one day, and I mentioned there was a guy I was interested in, and he said I could only date him if he, my mother's boyfriend, did the thing with me. It was nighttime, and we were alone in his car. This dude is seriously scary, and I was completely terrified. I was 19 at the time as well. So, aside from being my mother's boyfriend, it was wrong in several ways, but he already had a history of essaying me, so this wasn't exactly new, but actually doing it was terrifying, as I've only ever been with one guy, and I am not even sure he counts by how small he was. Anyway, I said I would agree as long as I was very, very, very drunk. So we bought 4 liters of vodka and 10 liters of pineapple juice. He took me to a motel. I don't know what he said or did to the receptionist, but while I was waiting in the car, he got them to turn everything off, all the lights and all the cameras, so no one would see us go in. So, I started drinking lots and lots of vodka. Eventually, I knew we had to do it, so once I figured I probably wouldn't remember it tomorrow, we started, and he was huge. I knew this wasn't going to work, but I tried anyway, but before I could, he stopped me. He got clarity and was like, "No, this is wrong. We shouldn't do this," and told me to get dressed. I don't know why he changed his mind, but I am so glad he stopped. So, yeah, it wasn't all bad, but he did tell my mom that I got drunk at a party, and I got into lots of trouble with her. Actually, she thought I was an alcoholic for a long time after that night, and I am 35 now, and she still doesn't know about it. Story 8. Years ago, this girl called me late at night on the family phone saying she had just been essayed and needed help. My own mother actually drove me somewhere to pick her up. She wouldn't go to the hospital and insisted on staying with us. In the middle of the night, she came on to me, and we started messing around, but then she kept begging me to park the bus in the station and let off all the passengers. So I thought to myself, what the heck am I doing? You definitely shouldn't be doing this with an essayed person. There are so many ways that this makes me look bad, end up in prison, or pay child support. This is way too screwed up. I declined the invitation and decided the entire relationship was best left behind. Summer came and went. When senior year began, she was pregnant. A few years later, we ran into each other, and she told me the child belonged to a man more than twice her age who fled the country before the child was born. This wasn't the same man that she claimed to have essayed her, but this young woman was also a liar, and you really couldn't believe anything she said. She's now an actress and model. Having known her long before this happened, I shouldn't have been involved in any way, but young hormones are strong. Story 9. I dated a girl in college, and we went to a small-town university. She's from a big city, and she said she's always wanted to go back-roading. I had a big truck at the time, so I said I'd take her. It's the middle of December, it's 12 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and where I am from, we hardly get snow, and it gets below 0 sometimes. Anyway, she asks me to stop and says she's always wanted to get adventurous in a car. For sure, girl, let's do it. I had a crew cab truck with a giant back seat that can fold up so we can have the whole floorboard for our fun time. Halfway through, I realized I had to pee something fierce. I told her I had to pee, and it was going to be quick because it's super cold outside. But she stopped me and said that she wanted me to try it on her. I asked her if she was sure. She said yes. It kind of turned me off a bit, but I obliged. At first, she actually liked it, but like I said, I had to pee something fierce. I ended up releasing the drain for almost 90 seconds straight, and she started yelling, "Get off me! Why is there so much? What the heck is going on?" There was puddle all over my truck, which pissed me off, but I ended up stepping outside to finish what I was doing, and it had gotten so hot in the truck that the 12-degree weather felt pretty good. She stepped out and thought the same thing, so we ended up finishing outside of the truck under the stars. Story 10. I had a boyfriend in high school who was significantly taller than me, so he was used to reaching down quite a bit whenever he touched me. One day, we were making out in a stairwell. I was standing on a step and he was on the ground. I guess his hands went where they were used to, except this time, instead of landing on my waist, they grabbed a roll of stomach fat. At least, that's the justification I tell myself. He didn't realize at first, and I was too embarrassed to say anything. I could have moved his hand, but I didn't. When he finally did notice, he used it as an opportunity to mock me for being so fat. Then he went and told his friends about it like it was some big joke. Looking back, the fact that I didn't immediately dump him says a lot about where my self-confidence was in school. Story 11. I had a fling with my attending doctor in my early 20s, and one day, when we were doing it, he started talking to me in medical terms, like saying how much he knows the body and particularly the peripheral nerve, his subspecialty, so he's going to give me the time of my life. At that moment, I realized how screwed up that fling was. I kind of think it'd be super hot if someone in the medical field went all clinical on me as he gave me an exam. I tried doing characters with an X once, and I couldn't stop laughing. We ended up turning it into a game instead of foreplay, where whoever laughed first lost, and we tallied up the points, and whoever lost ended up making dinner. Story 12. My boyfriend and I had just been new partners, and had only done the deed a couple of times, but we had a vacation planned. We had been friends a long time before, and had a very yes-and dynamic. He told me to bring something spicy, so I leaned hard into the bit. I dressed him with his eyes closed, and when he opened them, he was wearing a blue fishnet crop top, dressed like Ash from Pokémon, and I was dressed as Pikachu. It's important to note that neither of us is a Pokémon fan. The gasp he gasped when he opened his eyes was the funniest thing I've ever experienced in my life. I proceeded to make him chase me around the rental, and when he finally caught me with the Pokémon ball, I simply took the costume off and said, "I am evolving," and handed him a remote for the yellow Pikachu tail that I had in. We both paused, stared at each other blank-faced, and started laughing so hard that we couldn't even continue. Story 13. My coworker, who is about 30 years older than me, loves me in a friendship-type way. I like her too. Our job is an on-the-road type job, so we got really close when she trained me. So close that she started talking about her son, who is a good 7 years older than me. She wanted me to date him so I could be a part of her family. Well, I thought, crap, I like this lady. I will go for her son, whatever. Well, I ended up getting his snap. Then a few days later, my coworker invited me to dinner, and there he was. After dinner, her son and I went to the basement to hang out. Well, obviously we do it, with his mom, my coworker, upstairs. I felt bad after, but I felt worse when I asked him what we were, and he told me he had a girlfriend. Then I felt just stupid. Story 14. I am a 60-year-old female now, but back when I was 20 years old, my best friend since we were 8 and I were driving home through the desert from a 10-day camping trip at the river, Lake Havasu, Arizona. We'd been driving for hours on my ride, and it was hot. It was over 110 degrees, and we came upon this cheap motel that advertised a swimming pool, air conditioning, so we decided to rent a room for the night and finish driving home the following day. You can imagine that we were looking good after a 10-day river trip. Anyway, we get a room and relax. Most of the rest of the day under the AC. At about dusk, we decided to go to the pool and drink some beers. At the pool, there were already people swimming, but this one guy, who was a real hottie and maybe in his 40s, seemed to be floating around alone, so we struck up a conversation with him. He was drinking from a bottle of Crown Royal, and of course, he took some shots and became a bit buzzed. He was being all flirty with both of us, pulling one of us close and kissing, then the other. Well, things escalated fast, and he asked if we wanted to go to his room. We'd never done anything like what he had planned for us, but we went on into his room. Heck, we were still technically on vacation. Before we get to his room, though, he says he has to tell us something and proceeds to tell us he was one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives and that he'd committed a string of bank robberies. We looked at each other and thought, "Sure you are," and went to his room. When we got there, he proceeded to tell us his full name, show us the gun he used, and also some of the cash he'd gotten. Wow, we just thought he was hotter than ever, being the bad boy that he was in all, not to mention how he had us all talked up about what he was going to do to us. My friend and I are straight, so it was going to be on him to take care of us. We pushed the beds together and had a major bang fest and eating party all night, and to our surprise, the guy held up like no other I'd been with. It was so much fun being with this so-called bank robber bad boy hottie older guy, but morning came and we had to hit the road. We couldn't stop talking about the guy all the way to Ontario. He was just so cool. We had our doubts about the whole FBI fugitive thing, so we made a plan to stop in at the post office in Ontario and look at the wanted posters. Sure enough, he was. Everything matched from the name, birth date to the charges. I've often wondered if the dude remembered us and ever thought of us because we were so damn much fun and all had such a great time in the middle of that desert. I know my bestie, and I never forgot about it. Story 15. A woman asked me to break into her house and CNC. We established some safety guidelines prior to, and words that we needed to say to be sure it was me. She wanted me masked. I said yes to all of it, and I was driving over with a bag full of play supplies. As I was about to park far enough away to be out of her visual range, it suddenly hit me. I barely knew this woman. We had only been seeing each other for maybe 2 months. I got uncomfortable thinking that her neighbors might see me creeping around and call the cops, or considering how deep in the boonies we were, even freaking shoot me. Still, I went through with it. We ended up officially dating and kept engaging in behavior like this for about 4 to 5 months until it all just became too intense for me. Story 16. The first time I slept with my ex after we decided to get back together, I knew mid-act, oh, we've screwed up. We'd been apart for almost 9 months. Separate apartments, separate lives, we were finally moving on for real, and then we went and undid it all. We stayed together for another 18 months after that, and in that time we completely wrecked each other's lives, just to rub salt in wounds that were already trying to heal. That was 18 years ago, and I still remember the exact moment I realized I'd made a mistake. It didn't matter what anyone said to us, we were going to do the opposite. I learned my lesson the hard way. It rarely works. Don't get back with them. Another time, I tried to do it with my soon-to-be ex-wife after she invited me over for company on New Year's Eve. I was forcing it, and my body knew it before I did. Midway through, I nearly had a panic attack, and my lil guy just gave up, went soft like overcooked spaghetti. Honestly, I owe it one for that. I don't know what I was thinking, trying to do it with her again. Story 17. There was this girl in my college many years ago who was a virgin, and I was just thirsty for it. No intention of being anything but an afternoon FWB, plus there was no protection. In a few seconds, it flashed through my mind. This is not what somebody's first should be, and if she got pregnant, I would spend a long time connected to this girl I barely know at the moment. I switched tactics and left. I hope she found someone who could give her a first time that was freighted with happy memories. Story 18. Back in college, my roommate had his girlfriend set me up with one of her friends, and we did this double date sort of thing. The night ended back in our dorm room, me with this girl I had just met, while my roommate was with his girlfriend nearby. We had privacy curtains up between our beds, so it wasn't super awkward, but definitely had its moments. There was a lot of alcohol involved, and honestly, the whole night's a bit of a blur. At one point, this girl and I started making out. Then suddenly, she looked at me and asked, "Why are you touching me?" In that moment, I sobered up fast. It felt like she'd had a moment of clarity, like she suddenly wasn't into it and realized she didn't want to do anything after all. I immediately told her we didn't have to do anything and that if she wanted, she could sleep in my bed and I'd leave. She didn't really give me an answer, so I just left. I went and slept in the common area. In my head, I was like, nope, nope, nope. She was in a safe place, surrounded by people she knew and trusted far more than me, a stranger she had just met. I wanted to make sure I didn't add any pressure to a situation that could already be confusing for her. It's also not the best situation since I think my roommate went for a three-way after I left. His girlfriend said it didn't happen. He said it did. Lots of alcohol was involved, so who knows what really happened. I never saw the girl in question again. My roommate broke up with his girlfriend the following semester. Story 19. Back in university, I lived in a shared house with a bunch of other students, one of whom was this girl I had the most ridiculous crush on. She had a boyfriend, of course. They were on and off, dramatic as heck, and every time they had a fight, I'd be lying to myself if I said a little part of me didn't hope that was it. Not proud of it, but I was 20, stupid, and full of idealistic nonsense. Eventually, they broke up. And this time, it seemed real. And suddenly, our already flirty dynamic turned up to 11. There were moments where the tension was so thick that I would leave the kitchen just to stop myself from saying something wildly inappropriate and irrevocable. And then, one night, it finally happened. And I was in the middle of living out this fantasy that I had literally daydreamed about while doing dishes in that shared kitchen. But halfway through, mid-act mind you, I had this moment of eerie clarity. Like my brain zoomed out, looked at the situation from above, and whispered, "This is probably going to ruin everything." And that thought hit me like a brick. I guess I kind of stalled? Zoned out? I don't even know how long I paused for, but it was long enough that she turned her head around with this look and asked, "Is everything okay?" And how do you even respond to that? Yeah, just mentally mourning our friendship and everything I thought this would feel like. Sorry, I just realized this is probably a mistake, but I am already Nakayan invested. I mumbled something. We kept going, but the vibe had shifted, and we both felt it. Fast forward a few awkward days of minimal eye contact and conversations that suddenly had a lot more. So anyway, transitions, and then boom, she got back with the ex. Moved out not long after, blocked me on everything. And just like that, what had been months of anticipation and tension ended with a blocked number, a half-eaten box of communal cereal that wasn't mine, and a hollow feeling that I'd misunderstood the whole dynamic from the start. Was it worth it? At the time, I thought so. Now, I think I learned more about timing, emotional consequences, and how fantasy rarely survives contact with reality. Story 20. I got offered a handjay by a dancer in the back room for a bit of extra cash. Sure, why not? I was on some party pills, and it was the first and only time I've been offered. She talks to another girl, and I realize that the other one is her lookout. Anyway, she starts going and is definitely a pro. She's turning up the heat to help me get there, and I was getting close, but then I looked up at her and I saw this absolute look of disgust on her face. I was instantly overcome with guilt right as I peeked. I still feel bad. Story 21. Only mildly sensual, but I managed a large staff when the really tough harassment policies kicked in. A young woman who reported to me came into my office about some work-related issue. Mind you, we had a history of being in off-work situations. She and my wife and our babies had socialized. I was at my desk and she was standing over me. I noticed a hair on her blouse just over her right chest. All of a sudden, the Felix Unger in me kicked in, and I reached up and took the hair off. At first, she froze until she saw what I did, but then she calmed down. Afterwards, I thought to myself that she could have ruined me in that innocent moment. Story 22. I had this on and off situationship with a guy for a few years. Never anything official, just messy and drawn out. Eventually, we ended it for good, and he moved on and started dating someone new. She was genuinely sweet, and we were all part of the same friend group, so I got to know her and actually liked her. They dated for a while until she finally broke things off, saying he was hot but honestly trash. A few days later, I got drunk and ended up spending the night with him. It just wasn't good. Like, not even guilty but fun bad. Just awkward, disappointing, and filled with regret even in the moment. But the worst part? He told her about it. I didn't even get the chance to process what I'd done before she found out. Needless to say, she cut me off. And honestly, I don't blame her. I still feel awful about it. Not because of him, but because I lost a friendship that could have been something real. If I could take one night back, it would be that one. Story 23. I was dating a woman who was into some pretty intense fantasy play. She had a few surprise scenarios she liked, and after a lot of long, clear discussions about consent and boundaries, she asked me to do the whole break-in and CNC scene. She was about 20 years older than me and honestly, super cool, definitely knew what she wanted. I agreed, and we set a night, laid out all the ground rules, and went for it. It went pretty well, a little surreal, but we both got into it. The part I wasn't ready for? Running into her son in the hallway afterwards. It was like 2 a.m., I was sweaty and disheveled, heart still racing from this whole CNC thing, and there he was, grabbing a glass of water like it's just another Tuesday night. Nice guy, too. Very polite. He also said, "Hey." I mumbled something and went back to pretending I hadn't just climbed through a window. To this day, I still don't know if he had any clue what was going on. I hope not. Story 24. So my boy hits me up like, "Goddess massage appointments, trust me." He had mentioned a happy ending spot earlier that week, so I already knew where this was headed. We pull up. Low-key spa. Incense in the air. Lo-fi beats playing. Sketchy but chill enough. Then she walks in. Young baddie, yoga pants painted on, voice soft like melted caramel. I am locked in. She starts the massage, all slow and sensual. I am lying there like, okay, so we're in Thailand now, huh? Mid-backstroke, she suddenly says, "I am double booked. Be right back." I am like, cool, cool. I will just lie here, soaked in coconut oil and false hope. 30 minutes pass, the door opens, but it's not shoddy, it's a grandma. And I am just thinking, muscle relief is muscle relief, right? But then the vibe shifts. The massage starts feeling different. Firm hands, sure, but now she's whispering sweet nothings in a raspy little purr. I am thinking, wait, is Granny trying to? Next thing I know, she started doing her thing and I was staring at the ceiling like, God, are you watching this? And then I got the big O, in silence, and deeply, deeply reflective about every choice I'd made in life up to that moment. Story 25. Once upon a time, back in the early days of our relationship, I was giving then boyfriend now husband a BJ, and we were both really into it. Everything was going great, until my body suddenly decided to betray me. Without warning, my gag reflex kicked in hard, and well, let's just say things took a very unpleasant turn. I tried to pull back, but he was fully caught up in the moment and didn't notice right away. Not wanting to ruin the vibe, I swallowed my pride among other things and didn't say a word. He looked down at me, breathing heavily, totally blissed out, and said, "Wow, that was amazing." I just nodded and smiled weakly. I didn't want to kill his afterglow, so I never told him how supremely grossed out I was right then. Flash forward 15 years, 10 of them married. He stumbles across this thread. I laugh and say, "Hey, we've actually got a story we could add to this." He looks at me totally clueless and says, "We do?" So I tell him what happened all that time ago. He turns beet red, puts his head in his hands, and starts laughing so hard I think he might pass out. I am laughing too, finally free of the secret I've kept for a decade and a half. That was the night we discovered my very sensitive gag reflex. Today we confirm neither of us is into such play. Story 26. Back when my now husband and I were young, just 19 and 22, we barely knew each other. I was out with a friend one night when she suggested we all head back to her place. I had never had a one-night stand and didn't even really think of the possibility that this was where the night ended up, though I should have. He and I ended up on a mattress on the living room floor in a one-bedroom apartment, while my friend got busy with her guy in the bedroom. I remember vividly thinking, "What am I doing? Am I doing this? I guess so. It would be rude not to." And we did. Afterwards, I think I panicked. I ended up asking him thousands of questions through what was left of the night, so I could feel better about taking a virtual stranger to bed in a living room. We talked for hours. It all worked out in the end. Story 27. My ex-girlfriend is French and told me her deepest ever fantasy, so we did it because I like to please. I met her in the woods, and she brought a ladybird costume and was fully dressed up. We did it, and she asked me to rub her face in the wet dirt. So I did, and the whole time she was screaming in French loudly at the top of her voice, which translated to, "I am a cute little bug who loves crawling in the mud." We didn't stop, but I thought, Jesus Christ, this is nuts. But she had the time of her life, so who cares? Story 28. Back in college, I shared an apartment with 2 roommates. One night, they were both out, and I had the place entirely to myself, so I invited my boyfriend over. We started doing our thing in my bedroom with the door closed, just enjoying the rare bit of privacy. Things started heating up, and in the moment, he picked me up and carried us straight into the living room like we were in some steamy movie scene. We didn't even think twice, we were just caught up in it. But then I suddenly froze. The thought of one of my roommates walking in and seeing everything hit me all at once. Like, what if they forgot something and came back early? The front door was right there. I had to stop everything, heart pounding, and we awkwardly scrambled back to my room. It was way too close for comfort. Story 29. Years ago, I dated someone I had insane chemistry with. I am talking every intimate session felt like a damn movie, pure fire every time. We couldn't keep our hands off each other, and we loved pushing boundaries just to see how far we could take it. One night, things escalated in the most chaotic way possible. We were making out in the kitchen and somehow started grabbing random things from the fridge, whipped cream, fruit, chocolate syrup, anything within reach, and just rubbing it all over each other. It was messy, sticky, delicious chaos. At one point, we had chocolate pudding everywhere. Like, I don't even know how it escalated that far, but it was definitely giving 9.5 weeks energy, except it was thirstier and more ridiculous. We stumbled into the bedroom, covered in food like human sundaes, and just kept going, lights out. The body said, "Nope." I passed out. No idea if it was the sugar crash, dehydration, or just complete overstimulation, but yeah, iconic and embarrassing at the same time. Story 30. Okay, so this was one of those nights. We were drunk like terrible ideas suddenly sound amazing drunk. Things were getting heated, and somehow I got it in my head to break out my drill. Not to use the drill, obviously, but I stuck a screwdriver in it and decided the handle looked promising. And yeah, I used it. Multiple speeds, different angles, no regrets. We were both cracking up and satisfied at the same time. The whole thing was wild, borderline absurd, and somehow still super hot. To this day, I know she'll never walk through a hardware store the same way again. Power tools were forever changed. Story 31. At the age of 27, while living in Washington, D.C., I spent a night with a 75-year-old woman who owned and ran a communist bookshop in the Adams-Morgan/DuPont Circle area. Washington, D.C. had a lot of bookshops, with political leanings from very conservative to liberal, socialist, Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, etc. Her name was Laura. She joined the Communist Party USA in Minnesota after meeting Gus Hall at a college event at Smith College. Laura was plump and nerdy-looking and had a gray braided ponytail that reached her rear. She loved talking about books, ideas, theories, history, and politics. She had dark pupils, and she smelled like she had just bathed and dusted herself with talc. One day I was just browsing, and it was getting close to closing time. She looked at me and asked, "So, what are you doing later?" "Nothing," I said. "Would you like to have a drink?" "Sure." She paused, then said, "I wasn't done, actually. I would like to buy you a drink, and then take you up to my place and give you some action." I almost lost it. I think she asked because she didn't want to get a drink and then found out I might reject her advances to become intimate. I told her I found her intellectually stimulating, so I was okay with it. We had drinks. She kept holding my hand and pressing me on STD-related stuff. I assured her that I was clean and that I had rubbers. She was wrinkly, a bit saggy and funny. The bed stuff was good. We tried a few things and settled on a side-by-side maneuver from her copy of the Ancient Indian Love Manual. She asked me if I wanted to stay a while, so I did. I woke early, she made me coffee, and off I went home. I asked her how long it had been since she had been intimate, and her reply blew me away. For about 4 months, I've been on a real dry spell. I can't believe no one told us we'd be thirsty this late in life. I saw her a few more times after that, and she and I did the deed until a few months passed, and she told me we should both move on. "You're young and you're going to want to have kids, and I won't have the energy to keep up with you or kids pretty soon." Doing it with a woman almost 50 years older than me. Who'd have thought that? Story 32. I got married fairly young and was a virgin when I got married. My husband was the only man I'd ever been with. After being married for 30 years, our behind-the-door life had become non-existent. I am not exaggerating. When I turned 50, he and I hadn't done it in years. I tried, but he had absolutely no interest. So I got fed up and went online and found a man I was interested in. After talking a few times, I mustered up the courage to meet him in a hotel room. Nervous is an understatement. I was petrified. I was shaking when I walked into the room and felt like running away screaming, but I didn't. Long story short, he ended up giving me a full-body chiropractic adjustment. I left that day feeling like I was floating on a cloud. He and I continued to see each other, and it just got better and better every time. After a short time, he started talking about sharing me, and though the thought of it freaked me out a bit, I was way too curious to say no. Shortly after that, I had my first 3 score, then my first 4 score, then my first group project. It's been 11 years since he and I first met, and I can say with pride that I've become quite the panther. He spent the last several years training me to be the perfect gadget. The biggest part of that training involved me being with other guys, lots of other guys. My friend has total strangers approach me anywhere and everywhere. So, yeah, my entire life now is a series of crazy things I never thought I'd do. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.